The first time the bank called, I thought it was a scam. Mrs. Harper, we are calling to confirm the collateral assignment on your business line of credit. I stood behind my own register, coffee going cold, and said, I don't have a business line of credit. The woman on the phone got very quiet. Then she said, according to our records, you do. It was signed 6 weeks ago. My name is Lily Harper. I'm 35, and for the last 4 years, I've owned a little shop called Thistle and Vine, 3 miles from the house I share with my husband, Dean. I built that store out of a divorce settlement from my first marriage and 11 months of sleeping 4 hours a night. Every fixture in it, I bought. Every account attached to it had my name on the deed, and only my name, because I made sure of that the first time around. So when the bank told me my store was now collateral on a loan I never applied for, I didn't panic. I got curious. Curious is more dangerous than panic. Panic makes you cry in a parking lot. Curious makes you start pulling files. I asked the bank to send me the signature page. It took 2 days, because apparently asking to see your own name on a document you supposedly signed raises flags. When it came through, I printed it and set it next to a real signature of mine from my lease agreement. They want the same. Mine loops on the L. This one didn't. I called Dean at work, not to accuse him, to ask a simple question. Did you take out a loan using the store? There was a pause that told me everything before he opened his mouth. It's not what it sounds like. That sentence should be illegal. Nobody has ever followed it with good news. He came home early that night, which he never does, and sat at our kitchen table looking like a man about to confess to a fender bender, not a felony. Jake needed $40,000, he said. Jake is his younger brother, who has owned 3 restaurants in 6 years and closed all 3. The bank wouldn't approve him without collateral. I told them we had the store. You told them I had the store, I said. Then somebody signed my name on the paperwork. He didn't deny it fast enough. I signed for you. I figured you'd say yes anyway. You always help Jake. I want to be clear about something, because I know how this sounds. I did always help Jake. I'd covered his rent twice. I'd hired him to cater a store event once, out of pity more than appetite. I was not a woman who hated her brother-in-law. I was a woman who had never once agreed to put my only asset on the line for him, and my husband had decided my agreement was a formality he could skip. You forged my name on a loan document, I said, slow, so he'd hear it the way I heard it. I didn't think of it as forging. I thought of it as speaking for the family. That phrase sat in my chest for days. Speaking for the family. As if my signature was a shared resource, like the Wi-Fi password. Here's the part I didn't tell Dean that night. 3 years earlier, before Thistle and Vine even had a lease, Dean had borrowed $4,000 from a joint savings account to help Jake with a walk-in freezer and told me about it 2 months later, after the money was already gone. I'd let it go. I told myself it was a one-time thing, a brother thing, not a pattern. I filed it under small irritations, the kind you're not supposed to build a wall over. I was wrong about that filing system. I just didn't know it yet. The next morning, I drove to the store before opening and sat in the back office with the loan documents spread across my desk. My assistant manager, Priya, found me there. She's 26, sharper than half the accountants I've worked with, and she'd been quietly handling our books for 2 years. Something's off with the March deposits, she said, before I even told her why I was staring at bank paperwork like it owed me money. There's a transfer out I didn't authorize. Small, but it's been happening monthly since spring. $200 4 times, routed to an account that turned out to belong to Jake's restaurant, Copper and Clay. Small enough that I hadn't noticed. Small enough that it looked, on paper, like a subscription service. That was the first time I understood this wasn't a single bad decision made under pressure. It was a habit that had been running quietly under my business for months, and I'd walked right past it every time I balanced the books late at night, exhausted, trusting the numbers, because I trusted the man who had access to them. I didn't confront Dean again that week. I did something else. I called Marcus, an old colleague from my corporate days who'd become a forensic accountant, and I paid him, in cash, out of my personal account, to trace every transaction tied to the store for the past year. Then I called my lawyer,
the same one who'd drawn up the paperwork when I opened Thistle and Vine, and asked her one question. Is Dean's name on anything that matters? He's an authorized signer on the operating account, she said. That's it. You're the sole owner on the deed, the lease, and the LLC. He can move money. He can't sell the building out from under you. And legally, he can't pledge it as collateral without your consent, no matter what a bank teller was told.
That was the sentence that changed the shape of the whole week. Dean thought he had leverage because he'd been treated like a co-owner for 4 years. He'd never actually been one. I had simply never bothered to enforce the difference because enforcing it felt unkind. I was about to learn that unkindness and clarity are not the same thing. The landlord called next, because of course he did. The bank's collateral filing had triggered a lien search on the property, and my landlord, who is not a patient man, wanted to know why his tenant's business was suddenly attached to somebody else's debt. I had exactly one conversation with him. I sent Marcus's documentation, the forged signature comparison, and a letter from my lawyer disputing the lien. 3 days later, it was gone. That was the first real win, and it came from paperwork, not from a fight. Dean didn't know any of this had happened until Jake called him, furious, because the bank had frozen the loan pending a fraud investigation I'd formally requested. I hadn't asked to destroy Jake. I'd asked the bank to verify a signature. What the bank did after that was on them. Dean showed up at the store that evening, which he almost never did during hours. He waited until the last customer left. You reported it as fraud, he said. Do you understand what that could do to Jake's credit, to his business? I understand what it already did to mine, I said. You put my name on a debt I never agreed to. That's not a family favor. That's a crime with my signature on it. I was trying to help my brother. You were trying to help your brother with something that wasn't yours to give. There's a difference, Dean, and I think you've known that difference for years and just never had to face it, because I never made you. He didn't have an answer for that. I watched him try to build one and fail, which told me more than any apology would have. I revoked his signing authority on the operating account that week. Legally simple, emotionally enormous. He found out when his card declined buying gas, which is a strange, small way to learn your marriage has changed shape. Jake's loan got called 2 weeks later, once the fraud flag confirmed the forged signature. Without the store behind it, the bank had no collateral to fall back on, and Copper and Clay's equipment got repossessed within the month. I didn't do that. Dean did, the day he decided my name was his to use. Dean and I are separated now, working through what comes next with lawyers instead of assumptions. His mother still calls sometimes, gently suggesting I didn't have to go that far. I've stopped explaining myself to her. I spent 4 years explaining myself to people who never once asked whether they were allowed to spend what belonged to me. Priya runs the front of the store most days now. Business is good. Better, actually, without $200 quietly leaving every month for someone else's freezer repairs. Here's what I keep coming back to. I didn't lose my temper. I didn't burn anything down out of spite. I found out what was legally actually mine, and I used it. That turned out to be the most powerful thing in the whole situation, and I'd had it the entire time. I just hadn't ever needed to pick it up before. If you've ever let someone speak for you, because saying no felt like more trouble than it was worth, I understand that instinct completely. I lived inside it for years. But your name is not a shared resource. Neither is your signature, your business, or your consent. The day I finally understood that wasn't the day my marriage ended. It was the day I stopped apologizing for protecting what I built. If this story meant something to you, I'd love to hear which part hit hardest in the comments. And if you want more stories like this one, subscribe. There's plenty more where this came from.